does the credit card payment currently work? Now, for this, I actually had to do a lot of work, but I was finally able to find this old GIF of mine that I had created, which I called the Manic Network. So, Manic literally stands for Merchant Acquiring Bank, Network, N for Credit Card Network, I for the issuing bank, and C for the customer. Now, because I am recording it, on my recording, you're going to be able to see the entire Manic network. But then, yes, for everyone who's joining in from the LinkedIn audio room, I am going to be kind of narrating it as the GIF plays along. So let's imagine you have a customer who comes into a shop and wants to make a transaction. Now, the shopkeeper would typically provide them their QR code, or if it's a credit card payment, the POS machine that's there. This POS is typically issued by a PSP or a payment service provider. Now, this payment service provider, this POS machine, reads the card detail, figures out whom the card belongs to, the network to which this card belongs to, and sends all of the transaction detail to the card network. Now, how do PSPs find out which card network it belongs to? Pretty simple. Typically, the first digit of the card that you have is a giveaway for what network it belongs to. If it's a 4, it probably belongs to Visa. If it's a 5, it belongs to MasterCard. 3 is for Diners, 7 is for Amex, and 6 is for RuPay, I think. But I will still have to check out 6 and 7 for Amex and RuPay. I might be interchanging the two over there. Anyways, all of this information, the PSP then figures out and sends the card details and the transaction details to the card network. The card network's job is then to identify which is the bank that has issued this particular card to the customer and send all of the information related to this transaction issuing bank. The card network does this because the issuing bank needs to then authorize and authenticate this particular customer and figure out if they can actually go ahead with this transaction or not. Now, once the card issuing network figures out, the bank that's issued the card figures out that, yes, this is a legit transaction, they then send that information to the card network that, okay, we shall be debiting this particular customer's account, and we'll make sure that, the bank to which it has to be that's associated with the payment service provider, we send the money over there via the nationalized clearing house that's there. As soon as the card network gets this information, this okay, go ahead signal, it sends it back to the payment service provider who acknowledges it and generates the receipt for the transaction. Now, this ends the entire payment transaction process. The next step that takes place is the settlement process or the movement of the money. And now what happens is the issuing bank would have figured out, basis the PSP's details that were passed on, which was the account that acquired, the bank that acquired this particular merchant that's there. And the settlement then happens, the amount that has to go from the issuing bank to the acquiring bank at the end of the day, then it happens at that point in time. It sends the money to the acquiring bank at the end of the day through the clearinghouse, the national clearinghouse that's there. And instantaneously, the acquiring bank, as soon as it gets that credit from the issuing bank, also settles the merchant's account at that point in time. Now, this is all dandy when it comes to a debit card, because the customer's account is what gets debited at the issuing bank's end. What happens when it is actually a credit card account? This is where it slightly gets a little tricky, because a credit card essentially means that the issuing bank is taking up the onus of making sure they make that payment from their account for that interim period. When you clear your credit card dues for the month is when it actually goes out of your account. So till then, the onus entirely lies with the issuing bank to make all of the payments. So all the money that goes out actually goes out from the issuing bank. And what happens is the credit line that you are given as a customer, that keeps reducing till you reach like 0. When you reach a 0, it means that you have no more credit left with the issuing bank as per the appetite that they have for you. And that's when transactions start failing on the credit card network. And at the end of the month, the issuing bank that's there generates a credit card statement and sends it to you. When you clear that amount is when it goes back to the issuing bank's pool account that they maintain at their end. So this is how credit card works. Now, you can understand why it becomes a little tricky over here, because the bank is essentially taking the risk of your non-payment for those particular transactions over here. So they have to do a lot of checks and balances, a lot of anti-money laundering, fraud detection, and really heavy sets of checks just to make sure that they're underwriting the right set of customers and are able to figure out the customer's willingness and ability to pay. It's not just, their ability to pay a loan over there. which is why in this entire processing that happens, typically banks and the card networks charge something known as a merchant discount rate. Now, the merchant discount rate, let's say you've made 1,000 rupees purchase from a merchant and the merchant discount rate was at about a 2.5%, then ultimately, merchant is actually not going to get that entire 1,000 rupees over there, but it's going to get 1,000 minus that 2.5%, which comes up to what? 9750. Huh? It comes up to 975.0 rupees. What was that? 0.04. Anyways, so that 2.5%, that merchant discount rate, a huge part of it goes to the issuing bank for taking up that credit risk that's there. Another part of it goes to the card networks for enabling this entire, two different banks, the issuing bank and the acquiring bank, to talk to each other. Then a third part of it goes to the payment service provider that enables merchants to accept these various different types of transactions. And the last part of it goes to the acquiring bank as well for providing these services to the merchant. So a bunch of things that actually goes into the MDR. It's not really a random number that card networks or issuing banks charge just to make a profit. They have to do a lot of these. It's a very expensive process for them as well, which is why, it kind of gets charged over there at the end of the day. So that's a little bit about merchant discount rate. I just want to take a quick pause to see if I'm still making sense or if I just went way too fast for all of you. If it makes sense, do give me a thumbs up and we shall then be on our way. Or if you want me to repeat something, then please do. Yes, like Saral is coming up on stage. If you have anything to add, then please do let us know. Hi, Saral, go for it. First, please do introduce yourself. And yes, if you have any points that you would like to add here, please go ahead. Whoops, it looks like we lost Saral. All right, when he's back, we shall also be back with this as well. Now, moving on to how UPI makes money, or rather how UPI works over here. So UPI, like we saw right now in the case of the card networks, MasterCard and Visa, this is where NPCI kind of sits. And NPCI has another additional, apart from the entire payment transaction processing, NPCI is also responsible for issuing that virtual private address as well, or maintaining those virtual private addresses as well at their end. So they're able to figure out which is the remitter bank in this case, which is the beneficiary bank in this case,